I'm Spencer Mazyck, and joining me now is Jeremy Schneider. He is the attorney for Abu Hamza, an alleged high-level al-Qaeda terrorist. Welcome, Jeremy. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Jeremy, first, let's be specific. What terrorism charges does Hamza face here in the U.S.?
Well, there are three separate incidents in general. One is that they say he was assisting people in 1998 during a hostage-taking in Yemen. That's one area. Another area, they say he was involved in helping somebody set up a jihad training camp in Oregon in 1999. And they also said there was a different incident where he was involved in trying to help people set up some programs, training camps in Afghanistan, and rendering aid and assistance to the Taliban back there. Those are the charges that the United States has filed against him since 2004.
Well, and so to date, how has he pled to those charges?
He's pled not guilty. We're in the process of getting all the discovery from the government. We're in the process of preparing the case, preparing the defense, and he has entered a not guilty plea to all the charges.
Well, and so how did you come to represent him? Are you the court-appointed attorney?
Yes. There are attorneys in the Southern District of New York that are on a certain list, and at certain times either the clerk or a judge may call. And I have handled these types of cases before, so I received a call, I guess, the Friday before he was brought here from Great Britain.
And so will you see his case all the way through, or do you think that he's going to get other representation at some point in time?
I hope to see his case all the way through. In fact, we're having an application tomorrow in court to ask for me to have the assistance of other attorneys to work with me on the case. Other lawyers who I know, other lawyers who have worked on cases similar to this. So it's just given the volume of this case, given the amount of information there is, the amount of discovery, the fact that it covers 3 continents. It's a tremendous amount of work in a relatively short period of time. There's a trial date set for August 26th, which is an extraordinarily short period of time.
Of 2013.
Yes, exactly. Which to me, means there's a lot of work that has to be done in a very short period of time. So I'm applying to the court to have other lawyers assigned to work with me.
How many lawyers are you looking for? Well,
right now I'm asking to have one of my partners assigned, another lawyer who I know to be assigned, and a couple of associates to work under us as well.
Well, and so were you involved then with the extradition from Britain, his extradition from Britain?
Not at all.
But do you know, though, how long it took for the United States to extradite him?
Well, I mean, the exact time I'm not sure, but I know he was indicted in this case in the United States in 2004. He's been in Great Britain fighting his own cases, separate cases there, as well as fighting the extradition there, which took many years.
So, I mean, it's about 8 years, I guess.
Yes.
I said many reports said about 8 years.
That's correct.
What was the reason, what was the holdup for the delay there in getting him? Because usually, doesn't it take about a year or so to extradite people?
I'm honestly, this is not my area.
Okay.
I don't know about extradition,
Right.
So if I'd be talking to you about it, I'd be making things up, and I don't want to do that.
Well, the last thing I want to ask about the extradition, though, is that there is a deal, though, where your client can't face the death penalty or be sent to Guantanamo Bay.
Correct.
Do you know the rationale, perhaps, behind that?
Depending on, certain countries will, because of their particular political outlook or their philosophy for or against the death penalty, will not agree to send defendants to countries where they do seek the death penalty or they do have the death penalty. So, for example, Great Britain, before they would agree to extradite, had to have a commitment from the United States that they would not seek the death penalty against this particular defendant.
Okay, and so I know we're not going to get into the strategy of the case today because obviously that is confidential between you and your client, but is it within the realm of possibility that Hamza would strike a plea bargain with prosecutors here?
I was taught after so many years never to say never.
Okay.
And it's very important to me to keep all options open. So I'm not talking about what he has said to me in terms of possible plea, whether he's willing to or not willing to enter a guilty plea, but I would always be interested in speaking to the government about anything. I can always say no if I don't like it, and if there's something that's agreeable to both the defendant and myself, we would accept it if it's there. But there has been no plea discussions. The government has not made an offer to us. We have not approached them. And so I want it to be very clear that there are absolutely no discussions at this point about pleas. I'm just telling you that in the next 10 months, as the case progresses, you don't know what's going to happen in terms of possible dispositions.
What's it like representing somebody who is presumed guilty of such heinous crimes?
Well, I think that you just said the important thing, that he's presumed guilty. Under the law, he's not supposed to be presumed guilty.
Right.
He's supposed to be presumed innocent.
Innocent until proven guilty.
Right. But I think what you're saying is exactly right. Just because of that visceral reaction when someone is charged with a heinous crime, and that makes it a very press juicy case.
Right, the press is interested, very much interested.
And when the press is interested, then it has an effect on how they report it. Then how they report it affects how the jurors read it, and how the jurors are affected by it, or potential jurors if they come on the case at some point later on. So
is that more challenging for you, though?
Always, always, because everybody, the more serious or heinous a crime, the fewer people are on the side of the defendant. And that this is the most important time when someone needs a defense attorney, to make sure the government does not do more than they should, to make sure that their overzealousness doesn't infringe on the rights of this individual, because if it affects him, it could affect me, could affect you next time. So the more serious crime, the more heinous the crime, the more outraged the press is or the public is about a crime, is exactly the kind of case that requires a defense lawyer to be there. And my job isn't to decide if he's a nice guy, not a nice guy, if he's guilty, not guilty. My job is to make sure the government does what they're supposed to do, and I try to defend him as best I can.
When you've mentioned earlier that you represented cases like this, but
yes.
Does that mean that you've represented other alleged terrorists?
Yes.
Okay, and so how cooperative have they been? How cooperative is Hamza in this particular case?
I don't want to talk about the specifics.
Right.
I've spoken to my client a number of times, and he and I are doing very well together.
All right. So
in terms of communicating with one another.
And lastly, I know that you said that you have discovery coming up, but I know that there's also been a petition for him to gain access of his hooks because they were taken away from him in court. Do you expect that to happen? Or
he actually has limited access to his prosthetic devices right now, because he's in what's called 10 South, which is in the most restrictive Bureau of Prisons facility pre-trial. Whenever he's in his cell, he has access to the prosthetics. Whenever he's taken out of the cell for any reason at all, they're taken away from him. But just anybody in his position, whether he has prosthetics or not, is in an extraordinarily difficult. Just think about how it would be doing the daily showers, washing, eating, writing, anything at all. So, but right now he has use of them for limited purpose. But we'll see what happens in the future.
When the use is limited because it is dangerous for other folks?
Well, it's a combination. Well, it's limited because every time someone is taken out of the cell in this particular situation, they are handcuffed, they're shackled, and they have extra guards. And I guess they don't want to take any chance at all with something that the Bureau of Prisons perceives may be used as a weapon. For whatever it's worth, when Mr. Mustafa was in jail in England, he never ever had an issue with any guard, any officer, any inmate. There was never a security concern.
Well, and you should point out that they didn't take away the use of his prosthetics there.
Correct. And they made efforts to try to make sure that, sure, he's in custody, sure, he's in high security, but let's try to treat him in a way that has still some dignity and some integrity to what he's doing. So let's hope we can get that here as well.
So any advice for law students or other attorneys who are interested in your line of work?
Go to medical school.
Medical school. So you're saying don't get into it?
No, I'm not. I'm saying it depends on what your passion is. It depends on why you want to get into this line of work. I mean, I've been doing this for 35 years. Every day I get up, I enjoy going to work. I like being in the courtroom. I like defending people who need help. So my advice to them would be, depending on why you want to be a lawyer, you need to decide what kind of lawyer you want to be. Do you want to help people? Do you want to make a lot of money or not? Do you want to be in court or not? So it depends on what you want. And if you want to do it, then you should go to law school, take clinics, get involved with different organizations that do defense kind of work, see if you like it, and then if you like it, I'm sure if you do it, you're going to like it, and if you like it, just keep doing it.
Well, you're certainly in an interesting line of work, and we will stay tuned to see how this case develops, but thank you very much for joining us today to talk about it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
For more information on this or other topics, subscribe to BloombergLaw.com. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for joining us. Bye, everybody.